In the words of Ty Cobb Becker, and we are live. Welcome back to the Roofr Masterclass. I'm your host, Pete McKendrick, with my co-host, Nick. And today we are joined by Matt Danskin. Excited to have him on. Great topic here today. Thank you guys for jumping in and joining us. See lots of people jumping into the audience here. So excited to have you, Matt. Thanks for jumping on. And a great topic here today about inspections and the importance of inspections as part of your sales process and part of everything that you do in roofing. So excited to have you on. Matt Danskin with Building Experts Institute, right, as well as some other things. So I'll give you a quick minute here to intro yourself, Matt, and then we'll dive into it.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on here. I'm really excited to get to talk about this stuff. For years, I've done restoration referral system. We help other contractors create referral relationships, more of a sales, business development type of a thing. This last year, we started the Building Experts Institute with a couple other guys, and really being able to do more of the technical training, getting into the nuances of how we're doing inspections and processes and all that sort of stuff. So I love that we're getting to do this, and it kind of marries some of those things of how you're doing that technical process and how that actually assists in the sales. Again, I really appreciate having me as part of this.
Yeah, excited to have you on, man. And I think that, this is something obviously that goes hand in hand. We deal a lot with, now with the CRM coming online for us and proposals being such a big part of what we do. Obviously the inspections is a huge part for us. We just talked earlier, we have a company cam integration that helps feed that. So, Nick, talk a little bit about your experience and out in the field, how important was it? How much of the daily operation with your dad's business is the inspection?
It's huge. And a lot of people, when I talk to them, talk to new businesses coming onto Roofr, a lot of people are expecting like a system like Roofr to completely replace stuff and be like, it's fully automated and I don't have to go to the jobs. And some people are like, but people like me out of the jobs. And it's like, no, you're right. I'm not trying to change your business. You got to where you are because of what you're doing. So the main thing to look at is, I always used to say some corny line where it's just like, I'm taking your wheel with wood spokes on and putting steel spokes on that. That's it. Same process, but we're just going to update it. And things like what I used to do with my dad and what my dad still does, and a lot of contractors we talk to, inspections is everything because it puts a face to the name. It still allows you to do speed to lead, but it allows you to show the customer what you're looking at. And whether you're doing retail or restoration, and we can definitely get into this a lot here today, the inspection's integral to find out not only what's going on the roof, is there damage, does it qualify for insurance, what's the decking like, and even down to little things like, what's the exterior of the home like? Is there any broken windows or dented stuff that you can snap a picture and timestamp it to protect from any future issues? I always recall one issue that we had with my dad's company where I was on the back lower shingling it just by myself. Everybody was on the upper. And the guy came after the job and said, hey, my air conditioning unit's dented. And it's done, and it was you guys. And I looked at it, and I was the only guy on there, and I was on a plank, a 2x8 plank, as well as a harness. And I know nothing dropped, and the dent was the size of a 2x4. And I was like, dude, that's not us. But we had no proof. So what did we end up doing? Paying for air conditioning units. So it's another ancillary benefit to doing an inspection, of course.
Yeah, and I think traditionally, we think of, I always think of an inspection as a lead-in, when we're door knocking, but there's just, like you said, it's crucial to any operation. And I think, I'm excited to have Matt on here today to talk a little bit about that and really kind of see how we can incorporate it better. And maybe, you guys have built a system, right, Matt, to kind of, really harness the power of the inspection. So let you kind of dive into it a little bit and talk a little bit about what you guys have found is the most effective way to do these and, how you guys are working them into the sales pitch.
Sure. So I would say, first of all, the most critical part of all of this is that everyone on the team is doing their inspections the same way every time.
Love that.
Right. And I have my way of, here's my process. Here's what we're going to do. You might differ or vary on what you think is important. For a lot of the people that I talk to that are business owners, that are team leads, that have been doing this for years, usually they've figured out through trial and error and painful mistakes and all that sort of stuff what they need to be documenting. And they can go out to a property and for the most part, get that right and take the right photos and do the right things because they have all that underlying knowledge of knowing when something's going to be relevant, right? So I know that it might be relevant whether or not the gutters are secured through the drip edge or not. I know when that's going to be relevant based on what the damage is presenting. But the problem happens when you try to scale and you've got 10 guys that were doing all sorts of other things that were not inspecting roofs prior to this. And you give them 20 things out of your head. Here's what you need to do. And they don't have all that background knowledge. And so you really, really have to just make it boilerplate. This is exactly what we're doing. And I have to do this for myself. The way my brain works, I'm very process oriented. I'm very I want to refine this. I want to make it perfect. I don't want to drive back across town and have to do stuff over again. I don't want to not get flashing paid for because I forgot to take a picture of it, whatever. I want to solve all those problems with process, but also I know myself and I can be easily distracted. And so I can want to rush to the conclusion and all right, are we selling a roof today? Are we making some money? Right. And I'll skip 10 steps. And so I've had to literally just all right, I know I want to go up on that roof. I want to go up on that roof, but I know I have to take my elevation photos first. Right. And I have to take them in a certain order. And doing that really just allows everyone on the team to succeed. So if you've got people that are supplementing, whether they're in-house or not, if the photos are scattered all over the place, if they're different from one inspection to the next, if they're different from one salesperson to the next, it's going to make them a lot slower and a lot less effective at their job. Right. Yeah, and, so there's a lot of things like that. There's a lot of if you just do this thing right from the beginning, it's going to work every single time. So I have a lot of guys that are like, oh yeah, the adjuster is going to come out and look at it. They're going to pay for it. It's going to go fine, whether I take one picture or 1,000, right? And a lot of times that's true, right? The adjuster is going to do a lot of that job for you. But what happens when that adjuster is not going to do that for you? What happens when you need to be the one to hold the adjuster accountable? And so that's where if you just go into it, assuming the worst, or, plan for the best, assume for the worst, whatever, or plan for the worst, I guess it is. I totally butchered that. But if you go into it going, this adjuster is going to try to totally deny this claim and unfairly for this client, I need to make sure that my documentation is bulletproof. This thing's going to go before the Supreme Court, right? 1 million people are going to look at this photo documentation. I better have it right. Mm-hmm. And for the sales guys, I usually tell them you can use this photo documentation to sell what you do. Right. And how you do anything is how you do everything. So if you can show them, look at this beautiful file, they go, would you go do that on my house? Whether that's, I do a lot of stuff with insurance agent referral relationships. Man, you can't sell and build trust with an insurance agent better than just going, here's 180 photos that I took of this property. Right. There's no question about what you're doing there. So sorry, that was a lot of kind of ancillary background, surrounding this topic. But hopefully it's the only time my dog goes nuts here. But do you want me to kind of go through what is that process? What are the things that you're taking photos of? What order do you do that in?
Yeah, it's funny. There's a couple things in there that you touched on. Is obviously the standardization thing is a huge one for us. That's the whole reason behind Roofr, right? The idea is to standardize and organize your operation so that everyone is kind of on the same page and doing the same thing. Even the way we're quoting. One of the things that we talked about adding right away when we were first talking about building CRM, and I was talking with the product managers, is checklists. And having a checklist that you can automate on every single job. So every single job and every single rep is looking at the same checklist, is, got the same kind of checklist items that he can go through, like pictures of the front of the house, things like that. So, but one of the things you touched on, you mentioned the gutters, you mentioned the elevation picture. I touch on the things that you would say are the most crucial to make sure that we get photos of when we're out on a job, like doing an inspection for the first time.
Sure. So, like I said, always have that process. So with elevation photos, I see a lot of guys, they go, hey, we're going to take, one photo of each side or whatever. We always take, here's the side of the building that we're on. And then we always go the same direction, like the same direction of travel, right? As simple of a thing as that is, I'm not making a decision in the field. I'm just I go to the front left every time. And I'm going to go counterclockwise around that building, across the front, from the right to the back, from the back to the left, and around. And so that gives me the ability to think about one less thing while I'm doing this. And I will take a photo, I take that main photo, but I'm going to go to the front left and I'm going to take a section photo. So it might be 10 feet wide. And then I'm going to look within just that 10 feet to see, is there any damage? And that could be siding. It can be things that are hail damage or wind damage. It can be things that are, the kid with a hockey puck for you Canadians. It's, it can be whatever it is. I want to document that because like you said, that might be a 2x4 dent in the AC that I don't know that this customer is going to come back with later. But if I'm taking a photo, that section photo, and I'm taking photo of any damage in that section, it's going to get caught. And then I'm going to take my next section and I just go all the way around that way. So doing that process takes a little bit longer. I don't even break stride when I do this. I'm boom, 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 boom. So I've done, part of my CV, if anybody cares about why should I listen to this guy about inspections, I've done tens of millions of dollars of roofing inspections and scoping for large loss claims. A lot of times those are HOA communities, entire neighborhoods that are under one policy, where we might need to inspect 75 homes. And every one of those inspections needs to be exactly the same, in terms of our process. Following that elevation inspection, I want to go to the top of my ladder. And this is usually prior to having a good process. This is where I would get in a rush and I want to get up on top of that roof. I want to see what's dented. I want to see what's damaged up there. And so I had to just be very disciplined to say, I'm going to take all of my top of ladder photos before I get on the roof. And this is something really good, whether it is an insurance claim or just something retail, you need to understand how this roof is constructed is really what you're looking at the top of the ladder. You're looking at how deep are my soffits, because that's going to calculate into how many courses of ice and water shield that we need, right? How are my gutters attached? How big are my gutters? What are my gutters made of? I'm looking at what type of decking do we have? What is my underlayment? Do we have starter? How many layers do we have on this roof? All those things. How thick is our shingle? This is typically where I'll also measure my shingle. So I want to here's my width, here's my exposure, getting good photos of that. Unless I'll give the caveat, if you've got a nice rake that's 3 feet up where you can get on the roof, you can stand comfortably and look at the side of a shingle, that's where I'll do that there. So we can actually get the height of the shingle there also. But really just being disciplined to say, I'm going to get all of this documentation about how this roof is built while I'm right here. Then getting up on top of the roof. And we talked about one of the things with this is liability. Obviously, we want to document all the condition before we get started on construction. But I actually was working with one of my clients that does 9 figures a year. And doing that much business, you get some attention. And, they got attention from one of the carriers was accusing them of vandalism. And, I felt strongly, we're not vandalizing these roofs. We're not, creating this wind damage or whatever it was. But I want to be able to prove it. Right. And right now it's just he said, she said, it doesn't really go anywhere, but also it's a big pain in the butt. And so we said, all right, how about when you get done with those elevation photos or those top of ladder photos, walk to the top of the roof, and then start taking your overview photos. And you might need to walk the ridge to kind of get overview photos of all the roof. Well, if there's 5 seconds between my top of ladder photo and my overview photos, there wasn't really time for me to go up there and start creasing shingles or whatever they're accusing them of. And so just through that inspection process, they're safeguarding themselves from those accusations.
Are you ever using, sorry to interrupt there, but do you ever recommend using videos along with photos, or is that going to break up the flow a little bit?
You absolutely can. So there is a lot of times, usually the only times that I'll use videos is when like a static photo isn't really going to tell the story of what we're looking at. Right. So if, maybe something looks, looks complete, maybe it's a shake, cedar shake or something, and you just see a little dent. Well, really, we need to see that if we touch that, it peels apart and you see the yellow wood in between. Right. And so I think that's a really helpful type of instance where you can do that sort of thing. If you're looking at, decking that's really soft, I'll, take a video and show where I'm just lightly pressing my foot and this decking is flexing way more than it should be. Whatever the case is, that's where I think it's really helpful. I know a lot of guys will do kind of a recap video. And I would say if you're going to do that, wait until the end, wait until you've completed your full inspection before you do that recap video, to whether that's a homeowner or adjuster or whoever it is that you want to show that video to. That way you've had the time to see everything to know what you want to put in that video.
Makes sense.
Once you're up on that roof, take your overviews, then take all, so we take all our overviews and then we put our device in our pocket. So if that's a camera or a phone, and we want to focus our brain on looking at this roof, not on documenting the roof for a little bit. And that's where you will do any test squares. That's where you'll mark any shingle damage, whether that's mechanical or wind or whatever it is. Look at every one of your accessories on that roof. And I always slap a tape measure across the top of a pipe boot or anything like that. I don't even line it up. I don't even look at it. I just throw it up there, take my photo. I can always zoom in and look at it later if I need to. And once you've completed marking up that roof, then go back through and document all of those damages that you found. So there's a lot of different ways to do a test square. That's another thing in our course. We really get into our unique way of doing test squares, where we often end up with 40, 50, 80 hits in a test square. That roof, we did actually in our course, I think we had about 70 hits in the test square. Wow. Which I get a lot of flack for, because people are like, oh, the carrier only needs to see 10. Well, maybe so, but if I circle 10 and then they come back and go, I don't like 4 of those, claim denied. Now I'm all of a sudden I need to drive back across town and I need to redocument this thing to get the roof bought that should have been bought to begin with. And if you do that process correctly, looking at everything in that test square that's legitimate, it's just going to be a slam dunk from there. It takes you maybe 2 extra minutes to actually do that the right way, and saves you a whole lot more time when things could have gone sideways. So those are kind of our on-roof inspections. I do also always supplement with a drone inspection. I'll take kind of overview photos with my drone. I'll take some close-ups with my drone, especially if we got something steep. That's where I first started using Roofr years ago. Was all these things we couldn't get measurements of, and found out that I was able to draw my own roof with my drone photos.
Nice.
Yeah, I think you hit on some interesting things in there. I like the categorization of the pictures, right? Taking that 10-foot section and then taking kind of like a subset of pictures inside of that section, so that it's very kind of organized, right? You're not just, so many times you see like, oh, I took 250 pictures of this job, but they're like, a picture of the roof with somebody's foot in it and a shadow, and
You don't know
one of
where anything is.
yeah, you don't even really understand what you're looking at. So I do like the idea of the categorization of things. And the other thing you touched on, which I thought was really interesting, is automatically I think our mind goes to, oh, we're doing an inspection because there's damage, right? And that's the whole reason for the inspection report. We're not getting anything else out of it. We're just looking to find damage. And I really liked when you talked about the top of the ladder photos. And now you can really educate yourself as to what is going on with that roof, what you're looking at as far as the makeup of that roof. So you really see what you're getting into, from an education standpoint, as well as documenting the actual damage up there. And I think, that's a part I think that potentially gets overlooked on a lot of these inspections.
That's huge. Like even like when you're looking at from that standpoint, obviously your mind goes straight to layers, plywood, etc. But even seeing like the depth of that gutter, is it steel? Is it aluminum? What are we dealing with? Do we have fairings or fasteners? Like where we're from up north, we get the ice build up, and the ice will pull that fairings out if they're fairings and not fasteners, and slowly separate that. So it could be not only just a replicability thing with process and hiring people in, but also ability to know when and where to add upgrades, whether you're retail or restoration. That's going to work out for both things. So that's a huge thing to add. And on that replicability front there for training and hiring, Pete, we just had our masterclass with Ty Meredith on PE, going in and hiring. And one of the main things that he's talked about was the replicability and making sure that like it's kind of turnkey for the PE company coming in there to buy. You want to make sure that there's processes in place and everything's lined in. And this kind of thing is having like a really sturdy process for inspections is going to allow you to look better in the light of PE too, I think.
Oh yeah. We've definitely gotten some feedback from clients that doing all of our education type stuff that's played into their valuation, where they go, all right, you guys do actually have systems and processes for all this sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
One thing, Pete, that you mentioned in terms of we're looking for damage, right? Like we're looking to sell a roof. But I have had so many times where we go out and do that inspection and there's nothing, right? Like maybe the customer just bought the house, maybe, whatever the situation is, or they just had a light hailstorm that didn't really do anything. And we document it just the same as if it were damaged. Obviously, there's not going to be as many close-ups if we don't have damage, but we document all that stuff. And I've experienced, where a month later they get hit with a hailstorm. And I literally had an adjuster that was like, you can't tell me that this is new damage. And I was like, yes, actually I can. And I've got the photos to prove it. Right. Here's that pipe boot with no hail hits around it. Here it is now in front of you with hail hits around it. I actually had a insurance agent that was really impressed with our inspection process when we explained to them what this was. And that's, again, part of what you're selling. And she was like, would you go inspect my roof? She's like, I know it doesn't have any hail damage. Would you go do this for my roof? Yeah, sure. We go out and take, I think, 200 photos of this lady's roof. It was a 10-year-old roof in Aurora, Colorado that had never been hit with hail, which is an absolute anomaly.
Yeah.
Right? Well, 4 days later, she got hit with 2 hailstorms. Like she was in like the middle of the Venn diagram of hail swaths, and just got absolutely obliterated. And we sold her and half her neighborhood because we were on top of it. And we could prove we were already here. These houses didn't have damage. Here's the damage now. So the more, if you get called out to do an inspection, or maybe you're knocking in the wrong neighborhood or whatever it is, and you're finding roofs that don't have damage, it can be really easy just to go, oh, this is a waste of time. Let me get out of here. If you go do that thorough inspection, send that to your client, and then ask for referrals and go, hey, it looks like your roof is in great shape right now. Here's 150 photos of your beautiful roof. We do this inspection process for everyone just to provide transparency, show them the level of quality that we go through. Who do you know that we could do this inspection for, whether they have damage or not? If they don't have damage, I want to be able to show them what great shape their roof is in right now. If they do have damage, we want to be able to take care of it. and you can get a lot more referrals from your customers. I would say you probably sell more roofs with the time that takes than if you just go out and knock more doors for the next 20, 30 minutes.
Oh, for sure. Pete, that's your line. Your customers are your best marketing assets.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's really, really cool. I love that too. Like even thinking about it from another standpoint of offering out those free inspections just to people for like, if you have, not to plug our features, but like if you have like an instant estimator and you have postcards that you're building relationships with realtors or property management companies where you could offer free inspections on the spot, you're creating a relationship that's going to give paid dividends for years to come. And that's going to make a big difference in your growing company.
It does. And I would say the one thing that instant estimator is really helpful. So that makes it a lot more robust of like, here's what, it's actually going to cost you to get this done. In the economy of free inspections, especially you're in a competitive market, everybody's got a free inspection.
Mm-hmm.
And if their inspection is, I'm going to throw the ladder up, I'm going to stick my head up there and go, yep, you got hail damage. Take 3 photos. And mine takes 25 minutes and it's very thorough. They're going to draw the conclusion that this is the person that I want working on my home. As opposed to the person that went really quickly. And, free inspection that takes you 2 minutes is not a whole lot of value.
100%.
Yeah, there's a question here by Mauricio, and I think that this kind of leads right into it. He said, what advice is it using inspection photos in retail to increase your sales? And I think that kind of answers it. Like I think back to a ride along I did with a contractor where he was going out and doing inspections. Customers had called and said like, hey, I think I need a new roof. Sure, I'll come out and do an inspection. Well, he wasn't even getting up on the ladder. He was literally just walking around the house on the ground and then creating an estimate off of it. And, and I think that's the advantage that you have if you have a system in place and you're doing a more thorough inspection is it's going to look better, right? You're going to look more polished. You're going to look more professional. You have more detail now. You have a lot more information to present to the customer about their roof, and obviously, like you said, if I'm there for 5 minutes and you're there for 35 minutes, as a homeowner, I'm going to question like, hey, why was this guy only there for 5 minutes? And he's already giving me an estimate. What's the difference? So there's definitely a lot of advantages, even from a retail standpoint, if we're not dealing with damage and we're still using, maybe leading with that, free inspection. There's still a lot of advantages to doing a thorough inspection, right? To helping increase that sale.
I would say on the retail side, really one of the biggest things to me is finding the surprises, finding out that we've got rotten decking or we've got bad flashing or whatever these things are.
Right.
So we can see it on the front end. And if they're getting their 3 estimates, right, like a lot of people do, especially in retail, and the other 2 guys didn't catch the fact that the chimney flashing needs to be redone and that it's messed up. Or that the soffits or the fascias rotted out. And they, hey, this is going to have to be dealt with. And then when they see the photos, they're going to agree this does need to be dealt with. They're going to go, oh, well, those guys, either they're not going to deal with it and I'm going to have a problem, or they're going to hit me with a change order after we get into it. And I don't know what that cost is. I want to make this decision now on the front end with all the information.
That was my big thing when I was selling retail a lot too, was talking about like, I'm giving you everything up at face value. I'm showing you my inspection photos. I'm talking about available upgrades. By the way, Maurizio, if you give like 3 or more upgrades on there, on average, people are picking a 1.8. So you're increasing your average deal size right there. But when you talk about everything up front and you're up against other contractors, what I always used to go back to is I would never, ever downplay or disparage another contractor. But what I would say is when we have jobs like this where there's a difference in pricing, but there's a lack of evidence to support that difference, we want to take a look at, for you, what's going to help you in the long run. What is a change order worth to you in your time, in your money, and overall happiness of this job? Would you like to get it done right the first time or have to do it a second? And something like that could really change the mind of a homeowner and point them in your direction. And like Matt and Pete are saying, it's separating yourself from the competition here. And doing a really in detail inspection is going to do that.
Yeah, I think back to my neighbor getting his house done, and the contractor did a fairly thorough inspection. And one of the things, I know Nick loves upgrades, right? And
Mhm.
upsell opportunities, and it was a great move by him. He did a pretty detailed inspection, and he's working his way around the house, and he comes back and he says, yes, you need a roof, but I also noticed you need a siding repair, and it looks like you could use some new basement windows. And he was able to sell the whole package, where, he was able, he had the detail information. He had gone around the house, he had taken the photos, he was able to show them why they needed to do the other additional repairs besides the roof replacement. So, there's lots of things that I think you can take advantage of by doing a thorough inspection, whether it be retail or damage oriented.
Can I mention something just in terms
Yeah.
of that new hire process? I know a lot of guys who are experienced when they get, maybe they've been in this for a while and they go to a new company and they go, you have to inspect this way. And it's this long process. Oh man, I used to be able to just do it really quick and it feels like a burden. Right. But I will say I've talked to a lot of sales guys who, when they're brand new, and I've been there for me, when I first started in roofing, I didn't get a lot of great education on the fly, right? Like it was like, hey, go take pictures of the roof. Oh, okay. Here's what hail looks like. Go. Um, that feeling of like I need to provide for my family and I need to make money, and I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing up here. It will create so much insecurity that person will leave. They'll go work for another company that's going to tell them what they should be doing, right? It's not every time, right? It's different, different personalities, all that sort of stuff. But that's what's happening behind the scenes when you go, hey, go out there and do this, and you don't give them a lot of direction. Is they're going, man, everybody told me this commission job was a scam. I shouldn't be doing this anyway. And they're looking for their way out. Versus if you just go, we know what we're doing. This is the process. I need you to follow this process. And of course, you have to, like any process, you have to hold them accountable. You have to check on their work. You have to do retraining, all that sort of stuff. But that clarity of mission and purpose and why we're doing what we're doing here is going to equip them so much better so that they can bear all those fruits of success there without just the worry of I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm here.
Yeah, Pete, Corey Combs had a post about that today from South Shore Roofing, is why there's so many change up in the industry, why people can't hold on to reps. And reading the comments, there's a lot of like it's about arming your reps with education, with training, with support, and not selling them like, hey, you're going to sell 100K or you're going to make 100K net your first year here. It's like, well, no, let's talk about how we're going to get you there. And that's a huge thing that Matt just said, is just arming them with something, with training, with steps, with giving them a 30, 60, 90-day plan on how to kind of scale them there, not just be like, here's a bunch of door hangers, go knock, and you're going to make 100,000. It's like, no, man, that's not how it works.
Yeah, I think the huge part of this, like Matt is saying, is having a system, having those SOPs in place, whether it's your sales process, whether it's the inspection process, it kind of all goes hand in hand. You got to have those SOPs in place in order for these guys to find success. I visited a business not that long ago, and they're small. They had like 3 sales guys, but every guy was quoting and selling completely differently.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like one guy's using 3D modeling to sell, and the other guy's using the measurement report, and the other guy's actually doing inspections. And they kind of were like all over the map. They all had like their own style, and they were just allowed to kind of run and do whatever they needed to do. And there was no real like standardization to how they were doing it, and to the point that one salesman actually said, like, it depends on the property. Sometimes I'll do an inspection, sometimes I'll pull a measurement, sometimes I'll use the 3D model. Like, he was changing it up depending on the situation and how many visits he was making, how eager the homeowner was. So, what kind of sense of urgency he was trying to create, depended on how much, how in depth he went. So, so I think like anytime you can have those systems in place, I think it's definitely an advantage. And then obviously when it comes to hiring and stuff, it's crucial. Like you said, if you're hiring these guys that have come from other places, a lot of times you're going to meet some flack early on who are, they're going to be like, hey, I don't want to do it that way. That's not how I've done it. Right. So having a good system and being able to prove to them like, no, it makes sense to do it this way. Like it's actually going to be more fruitful for you, I think is a big part of it. So, so great advice. I think Mauricio asked a question here about how do you use the photos from your inspection to potentially create a sense of urgency without making it seem like you're just trying to upsell or push.
So my preferred way of doing that, I'm a student of sales processes, right? One of those is called NEPQ, which is essentially you're asking a lot of questions. You're allowing the customer to, tell you what their issue is, what their problem is, what that's gonna do. So I would do my inspection, do it very thoroughly, all that sort of stuff. But then I would ask them very specifically, like, hey, we've got there's rot on the fascia here, and I can probably still install my drip edge. We can redo your roof here. Did you guys want to deal with that fascia while we have the roof off? That's really the best time to do it. No, you didn't. Okay. So we're not going to be able to warranty that part of it. Is usually, kind of our part of it. Or, that, you can get into why is it that you don't want to deal with that? Or, let them kind of talk through, oh yeah, you know what? This is my home. I need, this is important to me that we don't have water coming in. And do you guys, maybe we're not the right guys to do the roof. If you guys are wanting to replace the roof, that's great, but you're probably still going to be having issues if you don't replace this other stuff. Do you want to go ahead and get it all done properly while we're at it? Right. There's different ways to go about that, obviously, but that's kind of my go-to is just asking the customer questions about like, how do you want to proceed with this, and be willing to walk away. If that takeaway is a powerful thing when you just go, hey, you know what? If we're not going to do this whole thing properly, we really just can't put our name on it at all.
That's huge. Knowing when a customer is yours, and knowing more importantly that not every customer is yours is super important. And being able to kind of identify like what you did, what was it, NEPQ is what you call it? So like it's very similar to like the methodology that I like using too, is like it's spin selling, where you're finding the situation, the problem, and the implication before you give them the payoff, right? The need that you have there. So Maurizio, just what Matt was saying there is just find out the problems that they're having, talk about the implications of those problems. Hey, this fascia is rotten. It's going to have problems holding into those fasteners on not only the troughs, sorry, Canadian came out there, the gutters, but also for the shingles. And without doing this, also the mold can spread. It could turn into dry rot. We're going to have blow-offs. We can't warranty this, but there's other options surrounding it. And even dive into, Maurizio, what's their budget? That budget need payoff is very important as well. Understanding what they need versus what they can pay for and finding options around that makes you more of a consultative seller, which is what people are looking for nowadays, especially in the home improvement industry.
I got two questions for you, Matt, around the inspection itself. One, first question, I guess, for me is, how important is an explanation? Like we talked a lot about the photo evidence. How about, adding an explanation to your photos, of what's in the photo, like what damage is there, potentially for the homeowner's benefit, potentially just for the knowledge of maybe the adjuster who's looking at it. And also, how important is it to physically have a copy of that to be able to leave with the homeowner in some way? Whether that's a form that I can email to them, something that I'm, maybe I'm printing it out in my truck or something and leaving it there. How crucial is that, to the sale, or potentially, in a situation where it's an insurance estimate for sure?
I think for myself, I don't annotate a lot of photos. I like that process to do a lot of the lifting for me there. So like we talked about with the elevations, if I'm taking a photo of that elevation, I know which side of the home it's on. And then I'm taking a photo of that section, I know what part of the home it's on. And then I'm taking close-up photos, I can see exactly what's going on there. Now I might want to document something if it's, hey, we can tell that this is mechanical damage or this is something other than hail or whatever. I might do that. Otherwise, we might get confused about, what we saw there. But otherwise, the process is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And so I know I don't need to mark this is on the front side of the house because of the order that everything's in. We talked about, I'm a huge fan of Company Cam, simply because it makes it really easy and it keeps the photos in the right order. There's a CRM out there that scrambles all the photos and I don't like it. I won't mention who that is, but it's super frustrating. You can't do that. So if you have that type of situation, you might need to annotate your photos to, just tell what was what. But I like to be efficient. I want to make sure we get out everything, but I don't want to spend any more time than we have to make sure we have everything properly. And then in terms of like a hard copy, a physical copy, I don't think that it's very necessary these days, unless you're dealing with somebody who's super old, I would say. So having the ability to do that is great for those instances. Because if you're dealing with, sometimes I've dealt with customers 5 years ago that did not have an email address, did not have one. Not like they wouldn't give it to me, just did not exist. Sorry.
All good.
I've got my mouse sitting there accidentally, did not have an email address, right? Like I think there's going to be some people that it's just technologically really difficult for them to do anything unless you just print it out. So I have that ability, but for the most part, people are going to see, hey, this person actually knows how to use technology. They've got this awesome report that they can send me. They've got their whole proposal that they can give me. I can, they're used to using Amazon and Domino's and all these cool little widgets that provide them with information, and Uber and whatever. So I want to give them more of that type of experience than, being something that was up to date 10 years ago.
Yeah. Interesting question here by Mauricio. Any experience using FLIR cameras to show leaks that is in a finished space?
In terms of internal, inspecting inside the home. FLIR cameras are great to use. Moisture meters are great to use. A lot of the moisture that's in drywall, if it's not super significant, you're not going to see it. You're probably not even going to feel it with your hand. But then you throw that FLIR on there and all of a sudden it lights up, and you see exactly what's going on. So that can be helpful for those interior things. I work with nearly as many mitigation contractors as roofing contractors. So a lot of times they're tackling that type of thing.
Well, we're coming up here close to the end, Matt, and I want to give you the opportunity to kind of plug what you guys are doing at Building Experts Institute and some of the other stuff that you have going on, and just kind of explain to the audience exactly what you guys are working on there.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So Building Experts Institute, like I said, it's been actually just over a year since we started that. Myself, Matthew, my guy, John Tillman, started that. John used to be my video guy for Restoration Referral System, and found that he was incredibly talented at creating really high quality video and audio and all that sort of stuff, and kind of the storytelling aspect, and just a master at that stuff. And working together with Matt Mulholland, who was the dean of the National Claims Institute, super smart guy. He was a public adjuster. He's been an educator for years. And I said, you know what? We've got this model like Masterclass. We need excellent technical training in our industry. There's really not anything that I've found that was really good. It's either sales and management and all that sort of stuff, which is important. But anytime you get a sales guru trying to teach you, how to properly identify hail or how to deal with engineers or do inspections, a lot of times it gets watered down. It's just not the level that we wanted to achieve. And so We've been producing, it's typically about one course per month. It's a full-time job for basically three of us, plus a trainer, that we're enlisting different experts throughout the industry to help with each of these niche specific things. So we've got courses on, like I said, dealing with, defeating unethical engineering tactics is the name of that course, but identifying hail damage to asphalt shingle roofs, identifying wind damage to asphalt shingle roofs, inspecting steep slope roof systems. We've got some cool stuff like that, as well as all three levels of Xactimate certification. We've got repairability is coming up here shortly, code implementation. So we nerd out on all that stuff. Ultimately, having elite expertise at that stuff is what gets you paid, right? That's what wins claims. We do everything. It's not just, hey, let's sell some stuff and let's cram it up against the wall and, cram it through. It's, let's actually do this with integrity and know what we're talking about and make a better argument and have a better process to succeed for ourselves, for our clients, for that right outcome. So that's buildingexperts.institute. And then it's coming up on 5 years, I've been teaching contractors restoration referral system. So restorationreferralsystem.com, reach out to me there. If you want to get really, really good at getting insurance agents to refer business to you, that's all we do. We're, I would say, the best on the planet at that very, very specific thing.
I love it. Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on today, and a lot of great information around, inspections and how we can utilize those a little bit better in our business. Obviously a lot of things we can do, to maximize the use of those and to definitely supplement our sales process. So appreciate you jumping on and sharing your knowledge with us. If you guys get the opportunity, definitely go check out. Look, Emerson said Restoration Referral Systems has changed the entire way that he sells. So if you guys haven't gotten with Matt or checked out what he's got going on there or at Building Experts Institute, be sure to do that. A lot of great stuff going on there. So any last words, Matt? Any parting words for everybody?
I would say, you want me to play that video as we go out?
Yeah, let's do that. Yep.
That's our outro.
Welcome to the Building Experts Institute course on inspecting steep slope roofing systems. My name is Matt Danskin, and I'm going to take you through our 5-part process for inspecting properties that have recently gone through a wind or hail event. We're going to document all the damages. We're going to document the property at large. When you finish going through this course, you are going to be able to efficiently and accurately inspect a property, regardless of what your role is in that claim. Let's get started.
Awesome, guys. Like we said, check Matt out, check out Building Experts Institute. And we thank everybody else for joining us today. Hopefully you guys got a lot of good knowledge here. And thanks again, Nick, for co-hosting. And we will see you guys next time on the Roofr Masterclass. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Thank
yes.
you, Matt.